Hey everyone, Steven here with LuckyCasts, and today I want to be showing you how to handle nil in Crystal. This can be something that's a little confusing if you're coming from a language like Ruby or a web framework like Ruby on Rails, and I know it bit me a few times when I was first getting started, so today we'll look at a really simple example of what error you'll see and how to resolve it. We'll actually use the LuckyCast codebase for this example, where I have a GitHub callback for GitHub sign-in. If a user is currently signed in when they connect to GitHub, I want to check and make sure that the GitHub ID isn't already taken by another user, and if it's not, I want to give it to that user who tried to sign in. So here we have some code that you'd expect to see in any web framework. If there's a current user, then I run a query to find any other users that might already have the GitHub ID, and if I do find one, then we raise an error. Otherwise, I sync that GitHub ID to the current user that signed in. So let's go ahead and build our server and see whether or not this works. Spoiler, it will not work. Okay, we have found an error where the method ID is not defined for nil. So this line is right here and it's saying ID isn't defined for nil, which might be confusing because aren't we checking whether or not current user is nil up here? We are, but the issue with Crystal's compiler, and why it views this as an issue, is between these two lines, there's no way to guarantee that something else is not manipulating the current user object and changing its value. So because in this template, current user could be nil, there could be a guest user, or a user that is signing in for the first time with GitHub, not someone who's connecting it to their existing account. Luckily, the fix is really easy. All we have to do is assign current user to a local variable for this file, which the compiler knows will not change for the duration of this file as long as we don't modify that local variable value. So we can do that in one line in the same if statement. We can say if the signed in user equals current user, like this. And now what we're doing is in one step, assigning current user to a local variable called signed in user, and checking if it's nil implicitly with this if statement. Then we can replace our usage here to signed in user, and here to signed in user. And if we compile our code again, and there we go, no more compiler error. We now are using a local variable, which gives the compiler the confidence it needs to let us proceed with the execution in the rest of this if block. And we can use this pattern over and over again. So you can see even in this else block here, I'm doing the exact same thing. Because this method can return either nil or a user, I am assigning the existing user to this value so that it knows exactly what kind of object it's going to expect, which in this case must be a user because the else if statement would not execute if it were nil. You'll find this pattern over and over again in lots of Crystal code bases. You can use it in line like this. You can also, of course, set signed in user equals current user and then not have the parentheses here and just say if signed in user, right? It's a little bit more verbose, takes one more line, but it might be more clear for you. Also, if you want to look into how to use method overloads to accommodate this, you can check out the other video on LuckyCasts. Just go to luckycast.com, search overloads, and there's a video explaining how you can use method definitions with different types to funnel logic in different ways, depending on whether or not the object you're passing in is nil or present. Until next time, I've been Steven with LuckyCasts. Have a great day.